Noah walked into the restaurant like someone breaking into a forbidden world. He was soaked from the rain, barefoot, and his clothes clung to his thin body. No one saw him. No one wanted to. He carried a cracked guitar on his back, and the courage of someone who no longer expects anything from anyone. He walked to the center of the dining room, stopped between tables, and, without asking for permission, began to sing. At the first verse, a waiter shouted. On the second, the manager moved in to kick him out. But on the third, silence fell over everyone. At the back table, a couple on the verge of signing divorce papers stopped arguing. They didn't know they were hearing more than just a voice. They were hearing a cry for help. And that boy, invisible until then, would end up changing their lives forever. If this story has already touched you in the first few seconds, like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the ending. It rained in Nashville as if the sky were exhausted. The drops beat against the windows of the Silver Diner with a dull fury, and the customers, muffled under coats and chatter, barely noticed what was happening outside. The city's ground was cold, but not as cold as the distracted glances of those used to not seeing. On the corner, hidden under the narrow awning of a closed auto parts store, Noah held his guitar tightly against his chest. The case had broken weeks earlier, and now he wrapped it in an old sheet, as if that could protect it from water or from the eyes of others. He was 11, and it wasn't just the rain that made him shrink. In front of him, the restaurant still seemed out of reach. People rushed in and out, and he mentally counted the time between one door opening and another closing, waiting for the right moment. He didn't want to steal. He didn't want to beg. He wanted to sing. That was all that was left. And on that late night, with his stomach clinging to his ribs and his head aching from the cold, singing was the only way to breathe. The door opened. 2 women walked out, laughing. Noah hunched his shoulders, pulled up his torn hood, and entered before anyone noticed. The heat hit him like a slap. The sound of silverware, the amber lights, the smell of French fries. It felt like another planet. No one looked at him. Yet, Noah walked toward the center of the dining room. The wet wood left footprints on the light floor. He slowly took out the guitar and, without thinking too much, strummed the first chord. The song was Fast Car by Tracy Chapman. He didn't quite understand what the lyrics meant, but he liked the feeling they left in the air. With his eyes closed, he let his voice out. Softly at first, then stronger, and by the second verse, the chatter had begun to fade. A waiter yelled from the kitchen. The manager raised his head and stood up, but Noah didn't stop. At the back of the restaurant, at the window table, Miles and Joanne stopped arguing. They were there to end what was left. 9 years of marriage frozen by silences that hurt more than screams. They had lost their son Owen 2 years earlier. A car accident on Route 65. Since then, everything between them had been just noise. No dinner had flavor. No decision had color. But there, on that rainy night, they heard a note they hadn't heard in a long time. Truth. Miles looked at Joanne, but she wasn't looking at him. Her eyes were fixed on the boy, and so were his. The manager approached Noah like a threatened bull. Hey, this isn't a place for a show. Get out now or I'll call the police." Noah stopped, but he didn't back down. "I just wanted to sing for a plate of food, sir. I won't steal anything, I promise." I set out. The manager's hand was already reaching for the boy's shoulder when a voice cut through. "Let him finish the song." Everyone looked. It was Joanne. She was standing holding a napkin like a white flag. The manager hesitated. Miles stood up too. "If he wants to sing, we'll pay for the meal," he said. And one more. The tension receded like the tide. Noah finished the song with tears in his eyes. The restaurant, now silent, erupted in muffled applause. Some people smiled, others looked away, but no one pretended not to see. He thanked them with a shy nod and slowly walked back to the door. Joanne called out, "Hey, wait, have you eaten tonight?" Noah hesitated. "No." She looked at the waiter. "1 double cheeseburger, no onions, medium fries, hot chocolate." "Got it." And she looked at Noah. "If you'd like to sit with us, there's room." Miles looked at her with a gaze that said more than words, but he didn't argue. Noah sat down, a bit crooked, a bit wary. He ate like someone who doubts his own luck, spoke little, answered yes or no, said he lived nearby, but not where, that he went to school but not which one. When Miles asked about his parents, he changed the subject. Joanne understood. Do you know other songs? A few. Learned from listening on the streets. The rain outside got heavier. The restaurant began to empty. The manager still cast sideways glances but avoided confrontation. When they finished eating, Joanne called the waiter and asked for 2 extra sandwiches to go, for later, in case he gets hungry. Noah thanked them with his eyes, not with words. Where will you sleep tonight? Miles asked. The boy shrugged. I usually stay near the station, where there's a roof. Miles nodded. It wasn't approval. It was resignation. Joanne looked at her husband. We could take him home, just for tonight. Miles replied with a silence that lasted too long. I don't know if that's a good idea. He's 11, Miles, and he's sleeping on the street. Noah watched them like someone watching a movie from a world that isn't his. I can go, it's okay. The food already helps a lot. Joanne stood up. No, come with us. Miles walked to the register without saying another word, paid the bill, grabbed the receipt, and left before anyone could change their mind. Joanne held the umbrella with one hand and Noah with the other. The city still wept from above. Cars passed like shadows, and the sidewalks reflected what remained of the night. Their house was in Berry Hill, a small and quiet neighborhood. When they arrived, Noah hesitated before entering. He looked at the furniture, the pictures on the wall, the smells of stable life. It was all too strange. Joanne led him to the bathroom, fetched clean towels, gave him a set of the son's clothes, still folded in the drawer like memories, and let him shower. Meanwhile, Miles stood in the living room staring at the off TV. This is crazy, he said. Joanne appeared in the hallway. It's just one night. And if it's not? Noah came out of the bathroom with damp hair and Owen's shirt. It was far too big. Joanne smiled. You can sleep on the couch or in the guest room, whichever you prefer. He chose the couch. That way I can see the sky through the window. That night no one slept well. Miles stayed up late. Joanne cried quietly in the bedroom. And Noah dreamed of a melody he'd never heard before. But when the sun rose, there was an empty spot on the couch. And the guitar was gone. Joanne came down the stairs barefoot, her eyes still heavy with sleep but her heart already on alert. The empty couch before her felt colder than the stone floor in the living room. The cushion, still indented, showed that Noah had been there. But now he wasn't. The blanket, carefully folded, rested on the back of the couch like a silent goodbye. The guitar was gone. Miles was already up, standing on the porch with a cup of coffee in hand, his eyes fixed on the empty street. He's gone, she said, almost in a whisper. It was expected, Miles replied, not taking his eyes off the horizon. Joanne sat on the armrest of the couch, trying to make sense of the sudden emptiness she felt, far greater than it should be for someone she had only known a few hours. It unsettled her. Why had that boy, among so many she had seen on the streets over the years, broken through her defenses so deeply? She knew the answer, but she wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. Noah hadn't gone far. He was sitting behind the old Nashville train station, the guitar on his lap and his eyes red with fatigue. The night in that unfamiliar house had been too good, good enough to be scary. The feeling of a warm towel, a soft bed, guiltless food, all of it was dangerous. It created expectations he couldn't afford. He had learned in the harshest ways that every promise comes with a price. At 8, his first foster family locked him in his room for any reason. At 9, in the second home, he learned to wash dishes and lie. At 10, he ran from a third house after a slap that was too hard. No one came looking. No one missed him. The street welcomed him the way it welcomes the invisible, with no questions, no affection, but a bitter kind of freedom. And music? Well, music was the only thing that never tried to hurt him. That morning, the gray sky seemed choked on sunlight. Noah was looking at the ground when a pair of worn sneakers stopped in front of him. He slowly looked up. It was Joanne. I figured you'd run before getting attached, she said, sitting beside him without asking. He said nothing. I just want you to know you don't have to hide from me, or from us. Noah looked around, searching for escape routes he knew so well. I'm not like the other kids, he murmured. Good thing. Joanne opened her bag and pulled out an apple and a bottle of water. She handed them to him. When I lost my son, I thought I'd never have room to care for anyone again, not even myself. But yesterday, for a few minutes, I remembered what it felt like. It doesn't have to last. But I needed to thank you." Noah bit into the apple slowly, not out of hunger, but for the courage her words carried. Miles showed up soon after, standing farther away. "We should take you back," he said. "To where?" "I don't know. A shelter. A care center." Noah shook his head. "I've been in 4. I was never really cared for." The silence that followed was different. Not empty. It was dense. Tense. Joanne stood and faced her husband. "He's not going back to the street." "And what will you do? Bring him home? Hide him from the police?" "That's a crime, Joanne. Crime is knowing all of this and still leaving him alone." Miles rubbed his face with both hands, too tired to argue, too frustrated to give in. But Joanne's eyes were steady, and he knew that look rarely lost. Back at the house, Noah stayed mostly quiet. He washed dishes without being asked, folded the blanket after using it, left his shoes by the door. He avoided questions. He avoided trust. On the 3rd day, he played a different song in the backyard. Joanne listened from the kitchen and felt something shift inside. It wasn't the music, it was the fact that someone was filling the empty space Owen had left. She knew it wasn't fair to project anything onto that boy, but it was impossible not to feel that the house was breathing differently with him there. That afternoon, Miles came home early and found Noah helping wash the car. He hadn't been asked. It had just happened. "Want to earn a few bucks?" Miles asked, testing the boy's reaction. Noah nodded with a half smile. Miles tossed him a microfiber cloth. "Make sure the back window's spotless, it's always streaky." Small interactions, small tests, small bricks in a wall that maybe, just maybe, could become a bridge. But peace doesn't last for those who live on the margins. On the 7th day, while returning from the market, their car was stopped at a routine checkpoint. A young, polite officer asked for documents. Noah was in the back seat. When the officer saw the boy, he asked casually, "Is he your son?" Miles hesitated. "He's staying with us temporarily," he answered, trying to sound neutral. The officer asked Miles to step out. Joanne grabbed Noah's hand. The tension rose. "Is he registered in any care program? Have you informed social services?" Miles took a deep breath. "Not yet." Everything happened very quickly. The officer made a radio call. Minutes later, another patrol car arrived. Noah was separated from them, taken to the sidewalk while 2 officers spoke with Miles and Joanne. One of them, older, seemed stricter. "This is a serious violation. Child in a risk situation, no documentation, no legal custody authorization." Joanne tried to explain. She spoke of the music, the night at the restaurant, the abandonment. "He has nowhere else to go. That's now up to social services." Noah saw the black car approaching. He recognized the logo, knew it too well. His hands trembled, his eyes burned. "Please," he told the officer, "don't send me back. I swear I can live in the basement or the backyard. I'll work. I'll cook. I just don't want to go back." The officer looked away. The protocol was clear, but something about it hurt. Before Noah could be taken away, Miles stepped forward. "Wait." He looked at Joanne. She nodded without saying a word. "We want temporary custody. We'll get everything in order. We just need time." The silence was long. The officers looked at each other. "We'll file the report, but you have 3 days to present documents and open a court case. Otherwise, he goes back into the system." The patrol car drove off, but the feeling of threat remained. That night, the house was more tense than ever. Noah didn't eat. Miles didn't speak. Joanne flipped through papers at the table with desperate speed. They knew time was short. The next morning, Noah asked to visit the nearest public school. He wanted to attend a class, to feel what it was like. Joanne took him. He watched from the doorway, softly singing the song he'd heard on the car radio. "Let It Be." A teacher overheard. She stopped, asked him to come in and sing for the students. He hesitated, then sang. The whole class applauded. One child cried. The principal called Joanne. "That boy has something special. I want to help him." But time was ticking. The 3-day deadline was a ticking bomb. And no one knew what would happen after the final knock on the door, because someone silently was already watching from afar. Someone who knew Noah's past. And that someone did not have good intentions. Noah began attending school as a guest, invited by the principal 3 times a week. He wasn't officially enrolled, but his presence in the classrooms, even as an observer, made an impact. When he sang during spontaneous performances in the cafeteria or library, staff would stop what they were doing. It wasn't just the technique. It was the soul overflowing in every note. Many wondered where this boy had come from. Joanne was preparing the paperwork for the temporary custody request with help from a social worker referred by the school. They had already appointed a volunteer lawyer and scheduled a first hearing. Everything was moving forward, albeit in fits and starts. Miles, quieter than ever, split his time between work and silence. When he spoke to Noah, it was in short sentences, but he watched the boy's every move, discreetly attentive. He noticed the small things, how Noah would intentionally leave the last bite of dessert, or how he lowered his head when praised as if he didn't deserve to hear anything good. One night, while they were doing the dishes, Miles finally broke the ice. "Did someone teach you how to sing?" Noah was drying glasses and answered without much thought. "My mom used to sing with me, before she disappeared." Miles hesitated. "And your dad?" The silence lasted longer than the sound of the running water. "He said music was a waste of time. One day he told me to shut up and I never sang near him again." Miles didn't push further, but something in that moment sparked a memory. The next day, Joanne took Noah to buy a new guitar. It had been a promise since day one. They picked it together at a small shop downtown. The owner, a man named Carl, a war veteran, heard Noah play for 2 minutes and offered a 50% discount. He said the boy played with his chest, not with his fingers. As they left the store, a man in a black cap watched them from across the street. His eyes followed them until they turned the corner. That night, Noah fell asleep early, but Joanne noticed a strange envelope stuck to the door. No sender, no markings. Inside was a printed copy of an old social services form, name of the first foster home, date of the escape, and a handwritten note in red ink. "This boy has more than talent. He has secrets." She froze. She showed it to Miles. "Is this a threat?" he asked, reading the paper. "Looks like someone knows who he is. Maybe more than we do." The next morning, Joanne took the envelope to the volunteer lawyer, who considered calling the police. But with no clear evidence of a crime, there wasn't much they could do. Still, he warned, this could be someone from the system, or someone who used to have custody of the boy. Miles began driving while watching the rearview mirror more often, and though he tried to hide it, fear crept back into the corners of the house. At school, Noah was invited to sing at the spring concert. It would be his first official event in front of students' parents and local authorities. Joanne bought him a new shirt. Miles took him for a haircut. Noah seemed to float somewhere between scared and proud. For the first time, he saw himself as part of something, and that confused him. On the night of the event, the auditorium was packed. The principal gave a speech about inclusion, resilience, and hidden talent in the shadows. Noah stepped onto the stage with his new guitar, and a respectful silence fell over the room. He sang "Imagine" by John Lennon. He didn't imitate. He didn't perform. He just sang with the truth of someone who still dares to dream even while afraid. By the end, there were tears, from teachers, parents, strangers, and applause. Lots of it. A local reporter in the audience asked for an interview. Joanne gently declined. She said he wasn't legally protected yet. The woman understood. As they drove home, laughing in the car, Noah finally seemed light. He made a comment that brought Joanne to tears in the front seat. "I've never wanted to go back home so badly in my life." But the house was dark when they arrived. The back door was ajar. Miles told Noah to wait in the car. He entered cautiously and turned on the lights. Nothing appeared to be missing, but the couch was out of place and there were wet footprints on the floor. In the bathroom, the window was broken. "Someone broke in," he said, calling the police. "Doesn't look like they took anything, but they searched the place." A patrol car arrived in 20 minutes. Noah remained silent the entire time, looking out the living room window, clutching his guitar. 2 officers searched the rooms, took photos, asked questions. "Did anyone know the boy was with you?" Miles hesitated, looked at Noah. "Maybe someone from his past." The officer wrote in his notepad, "Has he had any history with foster homes or juvenile centers?" Joanne stepped in. "Yes, but he's in the process of temporary custody. We have a lawyer. If you could provide his full name and dates, it would help with the investigation." Miles replied, "We'll think about it. That might put him at risk." After the officers left, Noah went to the guest room without saying a word. He locked the door. Joanne sat on the stairs for over an hour. "If you want to talk, I'm here," she said through the crack. Nothing. The next day, Noah didn't want to go to school. He spent the morning in the yard playing sad songs. Joanne made pancakes. Miles went out to try installing security cameras. Alone, Noah decided to write a letter. Not addressed to anyone, just written. "If I leave, it's not because I want to. It's because I'm scared of being part of something and ruining it again. I was told I only cause problems, but you treated me like a person, and that confused me. I don't want to disappoint anyone. I just wanted to sing in peace and sleep without wondering if the floor will be dry the next day." He left the letter inside the guitar case and sat there in the garden until the sun began to fall. That night the doorbell rang. Miles answered. A strange man with a plain appearance was holding an envelope. "Good evening, I came to get Noah." Miles frowned. "Excuse me? I'm a biological relative. I have a document here." Joanne came closer. The man handed over a folder with a worn signed paper. It was an old authorization listing him as a supposed older half-brother. "Is he here?" Miles looked at the paper. He didn't trust it. "We'll need to verify this with our lawyer." "Of course, I just wanted to let you know I'll be filing for legal custody soon." The man turned and left without another word. Noah, watching from the stairs, had heard everything. His eyes didn't blink. The folder the man carried looked familiar, like the ones he saw on screening days. Noah said nothing. He didn't eat, slept on the couch. The next day, the lawyer confirmed the man was indeed a relative, but he had a dark history of violence and abandonment. He was the person Noah had run from years ago. The custody process had now become a legal dispute, and the juvenile court judge scheduled an emergency hearing to hear the boy's testimony. It was the only chance to prevent him from returning to a past that had nearly destroyed him. The night before the hearing, Joanne left a note on his pillow. "You don't have to say everything with words, just say what your heart feels. We believe in you." Noah stared at the note for hours, but at dawn, the room was empty, and the back door, once again, open. The sun had barely risen when Joanne entered the room and found the bed neatly made. The blanket was stretched, the pillow carefully placed, and on top of it the note she had left the night before, now folded in half, with a single word written on the back. "Sorry." Her heart sank. Miles, hearing the muffled cry from upstairs, rushed up the stairs. He read the note, looked out the front window, then at the back door, which swayed slightly in the wind. He ran away. No, Miles. He protected himself. Joanne called the school, the principal, the lawyer, the social worker. No one had heard anything. Noah seemed to have vanished. He hadn't even taken the guitar. Miles went through neighborhoods, stations, diners, downtown areas. He showed a photo taken days earlier, the boy smiling shyly, holding his new instrument. No one remembered. No one helped. Meanwhile, Noah wandered aimlessly through a part of Nashville where the smell of grease and cigarettes mixed with honking and slow conversations. He wore an old cap he'd borrowed from a neighbor at school and carried a backpack with a change of clothes. He had decided not to put at risk the only people who had ever treated him with respect. That night, he slept behind a 24-hour supermarket. It rained. His feet got wet. He woke up twice, startled by noises that only exist when you're out in the open. On the second day, he tried to play in a park but was chased away by a security guard. On the third, he asked for food at a church that handed out boxed meals. On the fourth, he returned to the old train station, the only place that still seemed to listen to his silence. Meanwhile, Joanne and Miles filed a formal request for a judicial search. They informed the court that there was a flight risk due to trauma, and that custody was being contested by a biological relative with a violent history. The judge assigned to the case, Mary Callahan, was known for her cold, rule-bound approach, but she had also lost a brother to the system decades earlier. When she read the request, she scheduled a new hearing in 5 days. "If the minor is found by then, he will be allowed to speak," she declared. "And if we don't find him?" the lawyer asked. "The legal priority will go to the only officially registered family, even if that means returning him to a bad past." That same day, Noah hid in the back of a small music venue called Rusty Note, where local musicians performed. It was near Fifth Avenue. He went unnoticed for 2 days, listening through the cracks. On the third day, the owner saw him. "How long you gonna hide out back there, kid?" Noah hesitated. "I just like to listen." The man, named Chuck, was chubby, bald, and wore orange suspenders. He looked grumpy, but spoke like a grandfather. "Can you play?" Noah nodded. "Then get up here after the next band. Just one song. If it sucks, the crowd'll let you know. If it's good, you get a burger." Noah played. He sang an original song, simple, with verses about sleeping on sidewalks and dreaming of open windows. The crowd didn't know who he was, but they applauded like they did. Chuck handed him a burger and an old blanket. "You can sleep in the dressing room, but no mess." Noah thanked him with his eyes. He didn't ask for anything more. Meanwhile, Joanne returned to every place in the city where she might find him. Miles, exhausted and increasingly worried, crisscrossed the city. Neither was eating properly. They barely slept. The house was silent. On the fourth day, a boy from Noah's school told the principal he'd seen a TikTok video of a familiar-looking kid singing at the Rusty Note. The school passed the tip to Joanne, who immediately left with Miles. Noah was on stage when they arrived. He was singing "Fix You" by Coldplay, with a calmness far beyond his age. When he finished, the quiet was broken by soft applause, and the sound of someone gently saying his name. Noah. He saw Joanne. He saw Miles. And he froze. He stepped down from the stage slowly. The audience respectfully moved aside. Chuck just watched, not interfering. "You shouldn't be here," Noah said, eyes filled. "And you shouldn't be alone," Joanne replied, trying to smile. "I just didn't want to mess things up. Ruin everything. I heard you talking about the case, the relative. I know I can be a problem." Miles stepped forward, finally saying what he'd been holding back. "You're not a problem. You're a choice. And we chose you." Noah fell silent. His hands trembled. "But what if I mess it all up?" "We'll handle it," Joanne said. Noah went with them. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. But he got in the car. The next day, they prepared for the hearing. The lawyer explained everything gently. The judge wanted to hear from Noah, and he had to speak from the heart. At the appointed time, the courtroom was full. On one side, Joanne and Miles, formally represented, with all custody intention documents. On the other, the supposed relative, Travis, with a cold, rehearsed-sounding lawyer. The judge looked over the files, read the reports, and observed Noah silently. "I'd like to hear from the minor," she said finally. Noah stood. He walked slowly to the front. He held no papers, not even his guitar, just empty hands. "My name is Noah. I'm 11 years old and I don't remember what it feels like to have a home. When I met Joanne and Miles, I thought they'd feed me and send me away. But they gave me clothes, a bed, and silence. A good silence, the kind that doesn't come with fear. I know I'm not easy, but I sing because I can't say certain things with words. And, if you'll allow it, I'd like to sing here. Just one song." The judge looked around. Murmurs. Travis's lawyer objected. "Your Honor, this is not appropriate." But she raised her hand. Permission granted. Noah went to Joanne's bag, pulled out the guitar, quickly tuned the strings, and played a song he had written days earlier while hiding backstage at the Rusty Note. The lyrics spoke of doors that open slowly, arms that hesitate before hugging, and a house with no walls but the smell of coffee and voices that don't yell. The courtroom went silent. Even Travis, the supposed relative, looked away. When the song ended, Noah bowed his head. The judge looked at him, eyes glistening. "Thank you, Noah." She called for a recess, left the room, returned 10 minutes later. After reviewing the documents, hearing the testimonies, and witnessing this boy's presentation, I authorized temporary custody for 90 days, with the possibility of extension for legal adoption, if all conditions are met. Miles exhaled. Joanne closed her eyes. Noah smiled, not with his lips but with his whole body. On the other side of the room, Travis stood up abruptly. "This isn't over." The judge stared at him. "It is now, Mr. Travis." But the next day, before relief could become routine, something unexpected happened. When Joanne opened the front door that morning, she found a letter on the doormat. It was signed by Travis, and it said only, "You took him from me. Now I'll take something from you." Travis's letter felt like a punch to the gut. Joanne read it 3 times before showing it to Miles. The paper was crumpled, the handwriting unstable, almost as if it had been written in anger or under pressure. The short, threatening words spun in her head. "You took him from me. Now I'll take something from you." Miles tried to stay calm, but deep down he knew it wasn't a bluff. Travis was the kind of man who didn't accept losing, even when he never truly had anything. During the years Noah spent under his custody, there was no affection, no safety, only control, violent silence, and punishment. He didn't want Noah back to care for him. He wanted him back so he wouldn't have to lose. They called the police, filed a report. An assigned officer advised caution but was honest. The letter isn't specific enough to justify a restraining order. Stay alert, and if anything happens, call immediately. Joanne started sleeping with her phone in her hand. Miles installed extra locks, window sensors, and a motion camera in the yard. Noah, for the first time, seemed more worried about their safety than his own. He didn't want to be the cause of more pain. If he does something to you because of me, I'll never forgive myself. You're not the cause, Noah, Joanne said, holding his face in her hands. You're the reason we're still trying. We were empty before you. Days passed with no sign of Travis. The lawyer recommended continuing with the permanent custody process. The school organized a tribute for Noah for his performance at the hearing. He received an invitation to sing at a cultural event at the local city hall. It was small, but meaningful. Noah began writing his own songs. He used simple words, but ones full of truth. Home isn't a place. It's someone waiting for you to come back. That was one of the verses Miles found scribbled in a notebook. The following week, Joanne received an unexpected email. A music producer in Nashville had seen an amateur video of Noah singing at the Rusty Note. The video, shared by Chuck, had quietly spread. The producer wanted to meet him. Joanne and Miles consulted with the lawyer, the social worker, and the school. Everything was legal. They decided to take Noah to the studio, accompanied. The producer, Hank Adler, was a soft-spoken man with rare sensitivity. When he heard Noah sing live, he remained silent for several long seconds before saying, "This kid carries the world in his voice. And yet, it doesn't sound heavy. It sounds true." Hank didn't promise fame, but he offered a project. To record one song, just one, as a demo, an original piece. If Noah wanted. No pressure. Noah agreed. The song was called Window Light, a metaphor about seeing hope through the cracks. The recording took place on a quiet afternoon. Noah, seated on a tall studio stool, guitar on his lap, sang it in a single take. The song was sent for evaluation to a musical foundation for children in vulnerable situations. Noah came home smiling like never before. Joanne baked a cake. Miles lit up the backyard. For the first time, laughter filled the house. But the peace wouldn't last. The next morning, Joanne's car had slashed tires. One side mirror had been ripped off. On the windshield, a note written in red marker, "Told you I'd take something." The police were called. They investigated the area, collected fingerprints. The lawyer finally secured a restraining order against Travis. But the damage was done. The fear had returned. Joanne suggested leaving town for a few days. Miles agreed. But before they could plan, something happened. On a Saturday night while having dinner, the doorbell rang. Miles checked the door camera. No one. He opened the door cautiously. On the ground, a cardboard box with no sender. Inside, a portable recorder and a slip of paper with just 2 words. "Press play." Hesitantly, Miles pressed the button. The voice that played was Travis's, confused and unstable. He spoke in pauses like someone recording something for the last time. "I'm not the villain in this story, but I was treated like one. I don't know how to raise someone. I don't know how to care. I only know how to control." And Noah looked at me like I was a monster. Maybe I was. I can't lose again. I can't see myself in anyone. If you're hearing this, Joanne, Miles, I went there. I thought about ending everything. Him. Me. But he beat me. Without yelling. Without fighting. Just with one damn song. A song I heard in court. And it won't leave my head. I'm leaving. Far. I won't get in the way again. Take care of him. He's better than any of us. The recording ended with the sound of wind. Then, silence. They took the recorder to the police. The voice was confirmed as Travis's. Days later, his car was found at a motel near the Kentucky border. He had left the state and left behind a trail of regret. With the threat gone, the judge scheduled the final custody hearing. Noah appeared in a light blue shirt, new pants, and the same guitar as always. In the courtroom, beside Miles and Joanne, he held their hands tightly. The judge smiled. for the first time in months. I've never seen a case move with such emotional strength. Therefore, I hereby grant permanent custody of Noah James Carter to Mr. Miles and Mrs. Joanne Carter. The room applauded. Noah cried. Miles, too. Joanne couldn't stop smiling. As they exited, the boy paused on the courthouse steps, looked up at the sky, and took a deep breath. "Can I call you my parents now?" "You can," said Miles, hugging him. "You always could," Joanne added, wiping away tears. Months later, the window light demo was released on an independent music channel. In less than a week, the video had 500,000 views. Comments from around the world all said the same thing. "This boy made me feel something I didn't know was missing." Noah was invited to sing at a charity event. On stage, before starting the song, he simply said, "I spent a long time thinking love was just a word. Now I know it's a verb, and it sings with us. When we allow ourselves to be heard." The music began. The lights went dark, and the story of a street boy who once walked into a restaurant just to sing for food had become the song that rebuilt not just his own life, but the lives of everyone around him.